What is up, everyone? We got another UFC fight night card to break down. This one is Imavov versus Dolidze as the main event. And I'm going to be breaking this down from a Draftkings DFS perspective. And if you're new here, basically what that means is that we're looking for upside, we're looking for high scores, okay? And how you do that in MMA is with, you know, wrestling, finishing, or a combination of the two. And in rare cases, really high striking volume. But in general, you're going to favor the people who rate to finish the fight and the people that rate to wrestle. So, that being said, let's get right into it. We got Jamal Pogues versus Thomas Peterson. Um, about a 60-40 type of fight. And the prices indicate that for the most part. Jamal Pogue 7.5K and Peterson at 8.7K. That's about right. And for Peterson, he's got some grappling upside. He's got some takedowns. He should be the better wrestler in this matchup. And on top of that, he also has a very good inside the distance line at plus 140. So for his price, he's going to be a good play, I would say. And on the other side, you got Jamal Pogues, who, if he wins this fight, it'll probably be because he is able to stuff the takedowns and win a striking based decision while not putting up that much significant volume. And his inside the distance line is really bad at plus 500. So for this fight, it's pretty easy for the DFS analysis. It's a Peterson spot and probably a fade for Pogues. Then we got Landon Quinones versus Markel Medeiros, and Markel Medeiros is 8.5K. So you're getting a tiny bit of line value on Landon. But the thing is this is a 13 fight card, and that's on the higher end for these fight nights and for UFC events in general. And so what that means is you're gonna need these ceiling outcomes rather than just the wins. 6 low scoring wins is not going to be good enough. And so just because Quinones has some good line value, that doesn't mean that he's a good play yet. So Medeiros, let's see what he is to finish, because he doesn't have good line value. He doesn't really have takedown upside. So we need him to have a good finishing line to make this work. And he's okay, plus 150. That's not bad. It's a fine price um for these metrics. So yeah, I'd say Medeiros is in play, and Quinones at plus 350. That's just not going to be good enough. Even with the line value he has, he's just not going to be that good of a play. So he's probably a fade. Uh, then we got Carolina versus Dolidze, and this is a fight where I think it really defines, what MMA DFS is about. It's not about the just overall who's going to win. It's about what happens when someone wins. So, Luana Carolina, her win condition for this fight is going to be to stuff takedowns and win a close striking match, probably. And for Stoliarenko, as soon as she gets a takedown, she's super live for an armbar. She's super live for submissions. You can see her to win by submission plus 130. And, that's almost comparable to what she is to win the fight. So, long story short, Stoliarenko is just going to be a good DFS play. She has grappling upside and she has finishing upside. That's how she rates to win most of the time. So she's going to be a good play, especially at only 8.2K with these good of metrics. It's just a really good play. And then Luana Carolina, she doesn't rate to finish and she doesn't rate to score well when she does win by a decision. So she's pretty much a fade. Pretty simple DFS breakdown once again. Blake Builder versus Lee, another close fight. Oh, and not to mention with Stoliarenko as well. She does have a little bit of line value as well. Yeah, almost minus 150 now at 8.2K, which should indicate a 50-50 price, but she's not. She's like 55% to win. So, yeah, Stoliarenko is going to be a really strong play. Blake Builder versus Lee, similarly priced fight, both on DraftKings and with the odds. And Lee is pretty much a pure striker, and Builder's kind of has some submission game and a little bit of grappling, but his takedowns aren't amazing. So you can't really count on his win condition being grappling, although it is somewhat likely, as you can see, his submission line is, one of his more likely ways to win. Anyways, Lee, his inside the distance line is it's okay. It's okay for this price. And Builder at plus 350, that's just not that good at all. So this fight is probably a Lee or pass spot for me. And I guess if you have a strong opinion that this fight does make it to a decision, you probably fade this fight completely, because I think all of Lee's upside in this matchup is with a finish. I don't think he scores that well if it's a decision. So Lee or pass for this fight. And then we got another great example of an MMA DFS fight. Just this is what you're looking for. So you got Thumba at minus 250 and Pete Rodriguez at plus 210. So on a median basis, Thumba is going to win this fight more often, and he's going to score more points more often. Okay. But Pete Rodriguez, the way he rates to win is exactly what you're looking for in DFS. So first of all, we'll do Themba. Themba is minus 130 inside the distance, which for this price is pretty good, and he has takedown upside. So on paper, Themba's a really good play, and he's a somewhat moderate favorite. So there's like quote unquote safety in playing him, or at least implied safety that people will think like, oh, he's a bigger favorite, so I feel more comfortable playing him. And Pete Rodriguez, on the other hand, is a pretty decent underdog, and he rates to lose early most of the time. And this is actually really similar to the Nicholas Mata situation a couple weeks ago, if you guys remember that. And so it doesn't feel comfortable to play Pete Rodriguez. He's a big underdog, and he's going to lose by finish and score not many points a lot of the time. But his inside the distance line is it's almost identical to his win odds, which just means that when Pete Rodriguez wins this fight, the 30% of the time or so, he's going to score really well, and you're going to get a ton of leverage on everyone that plays Themba. So this is a fight you want both sides of, especially if Themba is high owned, which he probably will be, and if Pete Rodriguez is low owned. This is the Nicholas Mata situation, almost the exact same. So you want both sides of this. You don't just want to look at Themba, he's the favorite, he's a good play, and just disregard Pete Rodriguez. You want to get both sides of this fight. And if anything, depending on ownership, the Pete Rodriguez side might even be the stronger side in DFS. Okay. So I hope that made sense. But yeah, this is a fight that you want to get both sides of, and that's that. Then we got Zat Maxim versus Charles Johnson, and just on the metrics, you're getting maybe a little bit of line value on Azat. And Charles Johnson's just not going to rate to be a good play. He is almost a pure striker, somewhat low volume, and just doesn't really score well in his wins. And then Azat, his ability to finish is not that strong at like plus 300. But the thing is, we've seen Charles Johnson get taken down a lot. In that Cody Durden fight, he got taken down, I think, 11 times. He gives up takedowns, okay? And that's one of the things in DFS. When you have a lack of a really good finishing upside, you can make up for that if you have very strong takedown upside. And that is something that I do think Azat has in this matchup. So I think it's an Azat or pass for me. And if Azat really gets these takedowns going, he could have a really good ceiling in this fight. So yeah, give me Azat in DFS, and that'll be it for that fight. Then we got Belpita versus Molly McCann. And this week, I mean, you hardly ever see a top 9K range this week. I mean, you got both of these, high 9K fighters who have horrible finishing odds. And, you know, I guess Molly McCann has a bit of takedown upside, but Natalia Silva has literally no takedown upside pretty much. So we'll get to her later, but I'm just going to tell you right now, Silva's a fade. And then McCann, you could make the argument that she gets. I mean, you really can't, honestly. Like, you can't really make the argument that she gets to her ceiling unless she gets a finish, and she's just not going to do that often compared to her price point on DraftKings. So I think if you're playing 150 and you want to get really weird, you maybe take a shot on McCann. Definitely over Silva. I think McCann is a little bit of a stronger play. But long story short, McCann is a fade for me, at least, and should be a really weak play. And then Belbita, usually with these fighters with like non-existent ITD lines and really bad win odds, I just kind of fade them just regardless of looking into it any further. But I mean, she's plus 250 to win, okay? Which in and of itself is not terrible for 6.9K. And on top of that, she has some good volume upside. And I mean, if you get an 80 points out of Belbita in a win at 6,900, that could be good enough. So I actually do think Belbita is a side in DFS, if anything. But I can certainly agree with fading this fight as a whole. But I think I'm going to play some Belbita because I think an 80 or an 85 could be enough, especially at that low of a price. And you also have a good floor out of. I mean, the fight's going to go the distance, at a very high clip. So you could get like a lot of floor out of her, especially for something like a cash game or something like that. But yeah, I am going to get to some Belbita. I think she's an okay tournament play. Definitely, I'm not going to get to McCann. Then we got Urbina versus Radke. And Urbina, we're looking for like minus 110. He's 9K. And he's just like plus 140-ish, which is not amazing. He has a tiny bit of takedown upside maybe. And then Radke, I mean, at 7.2K plus 300, that's good enough. You don't need much from that low of a price. So yeah, I'll take Radke for sure. And Urbina, I'm kind of on the fence with. He's kind of fringy at this point for me, but I think he'll probably make it into my player pool the more I think about it. But he's definitely not a very strong play. He's pretty fringy. Then we got Kizriev versus Muradov, and a lot of money is coming on Muradov, and at his price of 7.4K at plus 130 money line is pretty good value. And I guess he has okay finishing upside. And then Kizriev on the other side has good grappling upside and pretty good finish odds as well. So this fight's tough because I think it's going to come down to ownership. If Muradov, because he has this line value, starts to rate really well in these optimizers and it's just way too highly owned, then I don't think you can make the case to fade him. And especially you can make the case to play Kizriev because although he has bad line value, he still has a good win condition. He has grappling upside. He has finishing upside. So this fight is weird. I would say go to ownership to make your decisions. If Kizriev is really low owned and Murdov is really highly owned, I think it's an easy spot to play Kizriev because he does have a 110 in his range of outcomes. Certainly he does. But yeah, this fight's tricky. I think my blanket advice would be Kizriev. He's a good play based on his ITD metrics and his takedown upside. And Muradov is like obviously elite line value, but he's okay and really not that great in terms of finishing ability. So I'd say Muradov is fine, but nothing spectacular. Then this fight, I mean, I'm not going to talk about this fight that much. You have a fight that rates to go to a decision and a fighter that's at 9.5K with horrible metrics. So this fight's just a fade. Don't really need to explain that. Randy Brown, Salikov. Randy Brown, not really a good finishing line. Salikov, maybe fringy finishing ability at best. So Salikov or pass probably, but this fight as a whole is probably a fade. But I mean, if you're playing 150, maybe some Salikov, but I don't think I'm going to do it. Then you got the obvious shoe-in fight, Moicano versus Dober. Another fight that rates to end pretty early, and a fight that you're gonna want to get both sides of in DFS. I mean, yeah, both guys have good finishing ability and a good chance to get a really big ceiling score. Now, I will say, besides just looking at it like the easy way, you need to get both sides, which is just the truth. Moicano is good at a rate to be the better play because he has some line value, he has takedown upside, and he has finish upside. That's like the three golden rules you need in DFS. So if Moicano is like ridiculously highly owned compared to Dober, then Dober's going to open up as a really strong play. He already is a strong play, but he's going to be an even stronger play in terms of leverage. So both sides of this fight are good, but pay attention to ownership because I could definitely see Moicano getting a little too much love in the ownership department, and that will open up Dober as an extremely strong play, similar to the Themba fight that we talked about. Then we got the main event, and main event is kind of tricky. It's expected to go about 3 rounds on a median basis. And you got Imavov, who's probably just going to be a pure striker in this particular matchup. And you got Dolidze, who has shown really good finishing ability when he can get the fight to the mat. And he also has decent power as well. But I think Imavov is just going to be too slick to get caught on the feet. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think Imavov, in a cash game and a median projection basis is going to rate to be pretty well. He's a moderate favorite, can win with a high volume decision, can win with a finish. So he's an okay play, and it's kind of hard to gauge his upside. Like, is he going to score 90 to 100 points? And that's kind of like where he fits in for this fight. Or does he have that like 130 point upside? I don't think so, but you just have to play him. I think you just kind of have to play him. He's going to be highly owned and all that, so you can definitely be underweight on him, but he's going to be in my player pool. And then Dolidze, same kind of thing. It's just like, when does he get this finish? If he's losing on the feet for 2 rounds and finds a Hail Mary submission in the 3rd round, that's not going to score well. Okay? So this fight is tricky. I think the easy blanket answer is to get to both sides, but I would be somewhat underweight to be honest with you. And Imavov is the preferred side for me. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions about MMA DFS, um, as far as how to identify good plays, I think I tried to do a good job of explaining that in this video. But yeah, if you have any additional questions, please leave a comment. And if anything changes, I'll make a community post updating my player pool either Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on what ownership looks like, if anyone misses away, if the fights get canceled, all that good stuff. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.